Marriages from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
I'm a good example that you can get AIDS from heterosexual sex.
Find out more about HIV, the virus that causes AIDS.
You're watching Channel 5.
History as a president.
We now join the following program already in progress.
Never seen a president this far behind before. This is the first time we've seen a president in this situation. We've seen challengers in this type of a situation, but never a president. And quite frankly, historically, you've never seen anybody come from this far behind. People always talk about Truman and Dewey in 1948, and they forget. Wasn't that far behind. No, he wasn't that far behind. At the same time, as a political reporter, I hesitate to say with 11 days to go that this election is over. I don't think we should say that. I don't think it's the proper role for us to be playing.
Hal Bruno, thank you very much. We'll be back in a moment with the MIA story.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Subaru.
A test drive, 6 miles on smooth roads. If I was only driving 6 miles on smooth roads, I'd buy a bike. I'd get in shape. Let me test drive in rush hour traffic so I can see if it'll last like a Subaru. Let me test drive it to snowy Alaska so I can see if it has all-wheel drive like a Legacy. Don't take me around the block. Let's get it to 50 and slam the brakes so I can see if it offers anti-lock brakes like a Legacy. Test drives aren't real. What's real is the money I'm spending. Show me. Tell me. I have the money. I want to know what to drive.
Introducing new waterproof formula bathroom duck. The only multi-surface bathroom cleaner that waterproofs as it cleans to resist dirt buildup. Like water up a duck's back. Watch how dirty water just slides off the side, cleaned with bathroom duck. Its unique waterproofing formula resists dirt buildup to make cleaning easier. New bathroom duck. Nothing fights bathroom dirt like duck. From S.D. Johnson Wax.
Wanna do plain Raisin Bran one better? Go nuts! Take the raisin and the almond nut and put them both together. Cover raisins with the almond nut and make it all taste better. Raisin Nut Bran. Nut-covered raisins, all it takes. Raisin Nut Bran. Plus almond chunks and crispy flakes for a hearty, nuttier taste than plain old Raisin Bran. Add the raisin and the almond nuts, you're gonna like it better. Why stop at raisins when you can go nuts? Try Raisin Nut Bran.
This is the $825 billion question. That's how much foreign corporations operating in the U.S. took in one year. But 72% of them didn't pay one dime in taxes. Not one dime. And George Bush supports tax loopholes for foreign companies operating here. Supports them so much that he attacked Bill Clinton for wanting to close them. Bill Clinton wants to collect what foreign corporations owe and put the money to work to rebuild America. Clinton Gore, for people, for a change.
I'm David Brinkley. On Sunday, the next president has to deal with, or should I say, put up with, the new Congress. We'll look at some of those trying to get into it and those trying to keep them out. Sunday. To this day, there are hustlers plying their miserable trade under the POW MIA flag in the very shadow of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial here in Washington. Scavengers who trade on the anguish and the uncertainty of families who have never known what happened to their sons and brothers and fathers and who will pay for any scrap of information. Well, perhaps finally we are approaching some kind of closure on the missing and even some kind of closure on the enmity between the United States and Vietnam. Here's a report from Nightline correspondent Jackie Judd.
For almost 2 decades, Americans have been haunted by questions that no one seemed capable of answering with absolute certainty. What happened to soldiers who never came home and never were accounted for? Now, in what seems a sudden development, many of those questions will be answered.
I was flabbergasted. It was all there, and they opened up these books of photographs, and I took pictures of them.
We know now, for sure, that he is dead, and that is a relief.
Hanoi has agreed to provide us with all, and I repeat all, information they have collected on American POWs and MIAs.
Major Joseph Morrison bailed out of his plane over North Vietnam in 1968. His children, Cindy and Jed, never knew what happened to him. Recently, there was a knock on their door.
About a month ago, government officials came to our house and met with our family and presented us with photographs showing my dad laying in the jungle dead. We were able to make some assumptions by looking at the pictures, and it was a relief, a feeling of relief.
Senator John McCain, himself a POW, was given pictures of his capture. All the other photos he helped bring back from Vietnam will remain confidential. But Pentagon correspondent Bob Zelnick spoke with investigators examining the pictures.
They're describing them as combat photographs taken by Vietnamese military people who were at or near the crash sites, very close to the time of the crash. In the words of someone who's seen them, you can practically smell the smoke in these photographs.
How and why, after so many years, was there a break in the POW MIA story? Part of the answer has to do with this man, Ted Schweitzer, standing rather anonymously today at the president's Rose Garden ceremony.
We worked 7 days a week in Hanoi.
In an exclusive interview with ABC News correspondent James Walker, Schweitzer said he went to Vietnam in 1989 as a medical relief worker, and that during a tour of the Army War Museum in Hanoi, he was shown an American pilot's helmet. More followed.
Guns, uniforms, ID cards, driver's licenses, money, notes, pictures, everything.
This was on your first trip?
First trip.
Subsequently, the Pentagon hired Schweitzer and sent him back to Hanoi to collect all he could.
They were ready to cooperate, and they brought me the materials, and I scanned them, the documents and photographs. I scanned them by the hundreds and by the thousands.
Schweitzer's mission set other events in motion, culminating in a crucial meeting a couple of weeks ago among Acting Secretary of State Eagleberger, Defense Secretary Cheney, and Vietnam's foreign minister.
And they confronted the foreign minister saying, look, there are thousands of photos in your archives. There must be thousands more that we haven't seen yet. Are you ready to cooperate with us or not? And the foreign minister returned to Vietnam a couple of days later, said, yes, it's all going to be open to you. And the Vesey-McCain trip was then accelerated. They got over there and got their hands on some of the evidence.
The two sides reached agreement on an important new step.
Special Envoy Vesey and Senator McCain went to Vietnam last weekend and sealed the deal. Today, President Bush was able to announce what he called a real breakthrough.
Hanoi's records will at last enable us to determine the fate of many of our men.
So far, 3 MIA families have been shown proof that their loved ones did die in Southeast Asia. Officially, about 2,300 men are unaccounted for from the Vietnam War, but only 135 are considered open cases. Vietnam's belated cooperation to resolve their status raises again one of the most haunting questions of all.
For those who say, what about people who are still alive? The answer is that this will also help us to isolate what those possibilities may or may not be. For every unaccounted for that we can have an answer to by virtue of this information, there are obviously less possibilities of people alive.
It's not gone unnoticed, of course, that all of this comes less than 2 weeks before an election in which President Bush is the underdog. However, even Democrats say they do not believe this was a so-called October surprise. But some have raised the possibility that Vietnam acted now in the belief it would get more from a Bush administration than a Clinton administration.
I think the Vietnamese would be making a mistake if they think they could get somehow a better deal for me. I've made real commitments to the American people and to the families and friends of the POWs and the MIAs that, you know, we've got to have a full, complete, good accounting before we normalize relations.
For the families of men who have lived in a kind of limbo for years, that may soon come to an end. And for better or worse, they will know for certain that the names of their husbands, brothers, and sons belong on the memorial wall with those of others who never came home. I'm Jackie Judd for Nightline in Washington.
Joining us tonight to talk about the new evidence of their father's death of the brother and sister in Jackie Judd's report, Jed Morrison and Cindy Morrison McClanahan. They join us from our affiliate in Tucson. And joining us from Boston is Senator John Kerry, who is chairman of the Select Committee on POW MIA Affairs. Senator Kerry, you and I talked very early on, even before these hearings began, and I know you were looking at it as being a really onerous task, but you've been making real progress, haven't you? Have you come further than you thought you would?
Well, not completely, Ted. I mean, I think there have been some surprises, but I've always felt that the possibility was there that we could have these kinds of breakthroughs, and I think that we have some distance yet to travel. I think we have to be very careful not to treat this first installment as the whole chapter, if you will. There's a lot of work to be done. There are more questions to be answered. We will be going over, as members of the committee, in about 3 weeks to follow up on this mission of General Vesey. And it's my hope that we can progress still further. But I do think this is significant, obviously, and it will go a long way towards helping to write the final chapter.
I want to talk to you about some of the policy considerations in a few minutes, but first let's just go to Jed and Cindy Morrison to talk a little bit about what this meant to you when you saw these photographs of your dad. And maybe, Jed, you would begin. In one sense, it's sort of a horrible confirmation. I mean, up until now, you at least had that little bit of hope. And yet, from listening to those sound bites of you in Jackie Judd's report, you seem very relieved.
Ted, I am. You know, Dad was shot down in 1968, and he was alive for around 17 hours. And several attempts were made to try to rescue him that were unsuccessful. So for 24 years, my sister and I and my mother have been, you know, you always have been wondering and just thinking about what happened to Dad.
Cindy, would you talk for a moment about this uncertainty and the vulnerability of people coming to you and saying, maybe there's been a sighting? I don't know whether you had any experience of that kind, but I'm sure you know of others who have.
There being a sighting, did you say?
Yeah, I'm talking about, you know, some people keep alive, almost make a business out of it, as I suggested at the top, keeping alive the hope of families. And, you know, that's almost worse than knowing that a loved one is dead, isn't it?
I think that I was 12 when my father was shot down and my brother was 14. I think my mother, who was involved in the POW MIA for a few years, I think she did a good job in protecting my brother and I from being inundated with that kind of a thing. So she made life as normal as she could for us. And so really, she's the one that would say that after a few years that she felt probably he was dead, but there was always that hope since we didn't know for sure. So I think she protected us a lot from that.
Did you protect her from the photographs, or did she look at the photographs?
She, my brother and I and my husband went in and looked at them first. She was a little taken back, I think, when they said that they had pictures that they wanted us to look at. And so we went in and looked at them first. And then after minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, then she went in and looked at them.
Jed Morrison, you said there were certain conclusions that you could draw, certain inferences that you could draw from looking at the photographs of your dad. Would you tell us what you're talking about?
Yes, Ted. The pictures, 4 of the pictures depict Dad laying, 2 of them are his full body laying there dead in the jungle. He's got his flight suit on. He is not, he's not dismembered. He does not look like he's tortured. The expression on his face is expression of peace. And the way his arm is laying thrown out, we are making the assumption, and we have talked to several people that we're close with, that Dad was fighting. He was, I'll use the term, we feel that he was taking out the Viet Cong, and they had to take him out. Reason being is because of the mission that he flew and who he was, they would have loved to have taken him prisoner and interrogated him. And that would have shown a different picture than what we saw.
We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I'd like to talk to Senator Kerry about what this means in terms of U.S.-Vietnamese relations and the larger picture. We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Well, it's here. Time for me to step down and retire as chairman of Chrysler. And hey, anybody that goes out wants to go out with a bang. And we've got a bang that'll be heard from Germany to Japan. It's a new car design that's as revolutionary as our minivan was. It's going to change the way cars are designed from now on. We call it cab forward. What we did was move the windshield forward. Then we pulled the rear wheels back, made the rear doors wider and easier to get through, and increased the width. Believe me, this does more than just improve the looks. It gives you a lot more room inside, it rides better, and it's easier to handle. I think cab forward, like our minivan, is going to get copied by everybody. It has to, just because it makes so much sense. You know, I got to tell you, when it's your last turn at bat, it sure is nice to hit a home run.
What's for breakfast?
Triples.
Why triples?
You'll see.
Some people like to see other people experience the great taste of triples for the first time.
Do they taste good?
You'll see.
They know that when you have crisp rice like Rice Krispies and add crisp wheat and crisp corn, you get a taste so surprisingly good that anyone who tries triples can't help doing a triple take.
It's good.
See?
When are you going to wake up and realize there really is a difference between window insulator kits? Our superior tape technology means our kit goes up easily, and nothing stays up more dependably and removes more cleanly. When it's time to cut drafts, don't settle for anything less than the original 3M window insulator kit, because it really is the tape.
Last year, Channel 5 provided free educational materials to classrooms around central Iowa to help children learn more about the weather. If you didn't receive a Channel 5 Weather School kit, there's still plenty of time to sign up. You'll receive a classroom weather guide, a cloud poster, and a free software kit. To receive Weather School, send a letter including your grade and teacher's name on school letterhead to Weather School in care of WOI-TV, Ames, Iowa, 50011.
Monday, a search for the perfect pickle paid for by the U.S. government with your tax dollars. Your money helping billion-dollar pickle companies make even bigger pickle profits. Do they really need $1 million handout from you? It's your money, your choice. Watch World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Senator Kerry, I don't know if you could see the graphic that we put up just before the commercial break, but indicated that there were 78,000 some MIAs following World War II. I don't know in which different theaters they were, but it certainly didn't take 20 years after World War II before we established normal relations again with the Japanese and with the Italians and with the Germans. Why do you think it has taken so long, and why have the 2,100 some odd MIAs in the Vietnam War been such an impediment to better relations between Vietnam and the United States?
Well, I think there are a lot of reasons, Ted. If I could just preface my answer by saying to the Morrison family how moving I found their comments, and how I think their comments really make very gratifying the efforts of a lot of people to try to get these answers. And it's extraordinary that so many years later that agony is still felt. And I think that is part of the answer to your question, Ted. It has to do with the way we lost the war, or the characterizations about the war. It has to do with the psychological residual feelings of America about that time period. It is the first, I mean, after World War II, we had won, and the nation was united. And in a sense, all the troops came home together. In Vietnam, the troops straggled home one by one, or sometimes unit by unit, to a nation that really didn't want to talk about it, certainly didn't want to thank them for their service. And I think the nature of that left a residual feeling that is still with us. Secondly, and this is very important, a lot of people have treated this issue over the years as the domain of quacks and zealots. And in fact, what the committee has discovered is that this is not fiction. I think it's been exploited at times. But the initial kernel of truth around which this issue was sort of kept alive by these groups is real. And you have this basic group of people who were known to have been listed as prisoners of war, about whom there were serious questions about why they didn't come back with Operation Homecoming.
Let me just interrupt you, because you've put your finger on something that is still very much alive, and that is there are, of course, still family members of MIAs who are saying, let's not allow this now to become a complete closing of the issue. There is still the possibility, say some, that there are some men over there still alive. Your conclusion after all the weeks of hearings that you've had on that issue?
Well, we haven't drawn a conclusion as a committee, Ted. We're going over in a few weeks. We have some very tough questions yet to ask ourselves. I have said publicly, and I will repeat, that I find it very, very hard to find any rationale that would have the government of Vietnam formally holding people. That is not to say that some group or some situation couldn't exist where someone is alive. I would say to you that at this moment the committee has evidence of the possibility of somebody being alive, but has no evidence that they are in fact alive.
Well, now, very, very quickly, if you would explain that distinction. What do you mean you have
the
evidence?
distinction is that there are live sighting reports, there are reports of Caucasians. Those are the kinds of things that General Vesey has been working to try to
From how many years ago?
Well, some of them in the 1980s, in the late 1980s. But we don't know that they even apply to Americans. They refer to Caucasians or to people under guard. We don't know what they mean. I personally believe that in the next months we have the ability to get an understanding of exactly what they mean. So the answer to your fundamental question about where this leads us is, this doesn't shut the door. It rather opens it in a way that we've never had it open before. And it provides us the opportunity to get the full accounting that everyone's talking about. Governor Clinton, President Bush, all of the families. And I think that in the next months, we will know whether or not we are really on the road to that full accounting, or whether something else is being withheld.
Senator Kerry, thanks very much for joining us. Cindy Morrison, McClanahan, Jed Morrison, thank you both very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ted.
I'll be back in a moment.
Lots of credit cards will give you a cash advance, but there could be a catch. Interest charges. Some credit cards charge them from day one, which is why you should use the Discover card. Pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll give you a cash advance interest-free. How does that grab you? It pays to Discover. It may surprise you to learn who, over 30 years ago, was the first car maker to build cars with seat belts, to make safety glass standard, the first U.S. car maker to offer anti-lock brakes, and who today offers more models with dual airbags than any other manufacturer. That company is Ford Motor Company.
We're committed to making safety innovation an important part of quality.
Ford Motor Company. Quality is job one. It's working.
I can't remember. It was something...
Nicoderm. Nicotine transdermal system.
Yeah, it's called Nicoderm.
Oh, yeah, the patch.
Nicoderm, huh?
Yeah, it's a patch.
Nicoderm, by prescription only.
There's one battery that backs you with free jumpstart service anywhere, for any reason. Die Hard.
Can't believe I left my lights on.
Sears Die Hard. The battery you can count on to give you more power when you need it most.
This is the $825 billion question. That's how much foreign corporations operating in the U.S. took in one year. But 72% of them didn't pay one dime in taxes. Not one dime. And George Bush supports tax loopholes for foreign companies operating here. Supports them so much that he attacked Bill Clinton for wanting to close them. Bill Clinton wants to collect what foreign corporations owe and put the money to work to rebuild America. Clinton Gore, for people, for a change.
Sunday, we'll be back on the subject of the elections when This Week with David Brinkley focuses on U.S. Senate races. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
If you wish a videocassette version of Nightline, the cost is $14.98 plus $3.95 shipping and handling. If you wish a printed transcript, please send $4 to 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203.
Nightline is a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Sunday. For 5 months, they are at the mercy of the wind and the sea. But these sailors are just kids. The cadets of the Denmark. ABC's World of Discovery. Tall ship, high sea adventure, Sunday.
You're watching Channel 5.